The beast has been slain. One of the biggest emulation sites there is has been taking off the grid because we cannot afford to keep this site afloat. Okay, so if you have like a website with every ROM ever listed, server costs for that are going to run you up about $6,000 a month. And those costs are obviously going to go up as you have bigger and bigger games, as you start pirating more and more, as you keep these games more readily available. And you also have to keep in mind legal costs. The fact of what you're doing is completely illegal, and it's not really practical to do anyway. So what we're seeing is the slow choking out of the emulation industry. All of these websites, all of these people who thought they could make some extra money by grifting online and grifting by distributing Nintendo games online, all of them are at the end of a fucking rope. Okay? They can't even maintain their old classic collection of ROMs online anymore. They're shutting down en masse. Nintendo is issuing DMCA strikes. And what's more, what's most interesting is that the Switch 2 emulator still does not exist. So if you want to emulate Pokepia, can't do that. You know, want to pirate Kirby Air Raiders? Can't do that. Want to pirate Bonanza? Can't do that. Want to play Mario Kart World on PC? Cannot do that. The simple fact of the matter is, it is becoming impossible for pirates to crack Nintendo hardware day and date. Like, so many of these people thought that they would be able to do this, like, forever, like, with the Switch. You know, people really thought that they would be able to, like, pirate games before they came out and, like, keep pirating Nintendo games forever. Because, and keep, like, emulating them on PC. But what we're seeing with the Switch 2 is that that is no longer possible. You know, everyone I'm seeing has come out and said that, like, yeah, Switch 2 emulation is not going to get off the ground for at least a decade. Imagine. A decade worth of Nintendo games. A decade worth of exclusives that you cannot play on PC. No matter how many times you whine and cry and bitch and moan, no matter how many times you, like, scream at your mommy to give you some money to give to emulation Patreons, no matter how much you scream online about how Nintendo is dead, this is the end result of your piracy. This is the end result of your actions. Is that all of your favorite pirates, all your favorite troons are just getting, like, rooted out, exposed, sent to prison, fined, and just completely eliminated. Not only is the Nintendo Switch 2 emulator non-existent, Nintendo Switch 1 emulators are getting kicked out all the time. You know, like, we have seen dozens of examples of, like, Nintendo Switch 1 emulators being taken out and just completely eradicated. And considering how the Switch 1 is still on the market, the entire ancient cope that, like, well, this is the only way you can play these games now, simply does not apply. You know, instead of asking for Nintendo Switch Online classics to be expanded, or for asking for re-releases, or asking for remakes, you know, instead PC gamers would rather pirate old Nintendo games to keep up the illusion that PC gaming has the capacity to play everything that gets released. You know, completely ignoring the fact that what they're doing is illegal. You know, you could probably play, like, old Nintendo games on, like, an Alarmo if you really wanted to. You know, if you were, like, able to hack it. Like, you know, pirating things is not unique to PC, essentially. What you're doing is, what you're experiencing is just this heavily streamlined, version of that. And the thing about that is that the method in which you pirate games, you know, simply just clicking a button and downloading it over the internet, like, that is not going to be a viable thing going forward. Like, what you're doing is illegal and is getting cracked down on worldwide. So you're not going to be able to flee to Russia, or you're not going to be able to, like, go to, like, some, like, South American country, and you're not going to be able to, like, run from the long arm of the law, okay? Like, Nintendo's going to find you, and they're going to fine you for what you've done. You are completely eradicated. You are an absolute travesty on gamer culture. Like, you are actively making everything worse. And what's worse is that so many people want to pretend that this is some like limitation, that this is some bad thing, that Nintendo is somehow ruining their experience, and that there's no other way to play these games when they could just easily buy a Nintendo console. Again, it strikes me very, very strongly just how the community is dead silent when it comes to the unviability of emulation at this point. You know, it strikes me as it's very, very strange how Nintendo has like slaughtered the piracy community, and yet we're still in this like age where people think they've won because they have like decade-old ROMs in their hard drive. Like, they think that like just because they already have all the old Nintendo games on their computers, that makes them like immune, and that means that like the emulating will continue. But it's just not true. Okay, there are no Nintendo Switch 2 emulators that are being made right now. There is no piracy going on, and what you're seeing is just the slow, gradual decline of this culture. You know, anybody who tries to pirate Pokepia is going to be completely wrecked. You're not going to be able to participate in the events. You're not going to be able to participate in online play. You're not going to be able to be a day one buyer and enjoy this game like day one. And that is going to severely limit your experience. Even if you could create an emulator that perfectly replicated the Switch 2 experience. Like, the reality is, there is no situation in which a pirated, emulated copy is going to be better than the official Nintendo one. Like, the only cope that you have is this idea that stealing things makes it free, and is something that really should be called out for what it is. Something that I think should be addressed as, in reality, as just being a very, very good demonstration of what we're seeing out of this community. It's something that I think needs to be called out more often. It's something that I think we should talk about more. It's something that really needs to be said in the Nintendo community, just how unviable emulation actually is. How this isn't going to go anywhere, how this isn't going to take off, how this isn't going to like magically become some major success story. This is a textbook example of just how the entire industry looks the other way when the emulation community takes a massive L.